So if the East has a solution for mental health, why not take it? Because in the West, so many technological inventions took place which the East is using. So I think we are in a global marketplace. So therefore, exchange is the key. People appreciate that the wisdom of the Gita is there for us in our current moment.
Before we jump into this episode, I'd love to invite you to join this candid spiritual community to hear more conversations that will help you become happier, healthier, and more healed. All I want you to do is click on that subscribe button because I love your support. I love seeing all the comments pouring through, all the love pouring through, and we're just getting started. I can't wait to go on this journey with you, whether you're a spiritual seeker or you're just curious about the topic. And we really hope that our conversations will provide you food for thought and inspiration for your own spiritual journey. So join us for honest, candid discussions about spirituality for soul's sake. Today I'm joined by the mastermind of an eco-village, a place in India in which things are happening completely differently to the world outside, an author, an orator of spiritual knowledge, none other than Gauranga Das. Thank you so much for being here. I am deeply impressed by the books, The Art of Resilience, The Art of Focus. If you haven't seen these books, please do check them out on Amazon. They're fantastic reads. But I wanted to get into speaking about the eco-village here at the we're in Palghar, near to Mumbai, and I just want to understand the vision here, what you had envisioned for this place and how you're making it all sustain, to be honest.
Thank you, Radhika, for asking this question about the eco-village. As you know that UN Sustainability Development Goals, all the world is trying to strive for it, but climate change is a big crisis. And United Nations, which is a science and data-backed organization, reached out in 2017 to faith-based organizations and said that, why don't you also assist us in trying to mitigate climate change?
Wow.
So, what the founder of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada, very fervently wanted was a synthesis of science and religion is automatically happening as a result of this climate change crisis, where UN represents full science and they are reaching out to faith-based organizations and leaders and telling them, please help us mitigate climate change. So I've been appointed a UN Faith for Earth counselor in 2020. And a part of my duties and responsibilities is to share with the world how spirituality can transform the ecology of the heart. And when the heart is purified of its greed and exploitative tendencies, it has an impact on how we deal with nature. So therefore, the whole vision of the eco-village is harmony of the self with the divine, harmony with nature, and harmony with community. And once we establish all of this, then we have spirituality, sustainability, and social impact. We call it S3 impact, and that's what the world needs today. And this is a small sample of what the world actually needs.
It's absolutely incredible because most of the time spiritual groups are known for being what we call spiritually bypassing all the things of, making sure that the earth is taken care of, etc. And so what's happening here, if you have never visited the Govardhan EcoVillage, I highly recommend it. I think it's a fantastic place that showcases all the things that you just spoke about. Do you also find that there's challenges with trying to, you have to, in one sense, mitigate the sustainability whilst also, because I've seen that you still have to use diesel-powered cars, etc., to transport things to me. So then how do you kind of ethically balance both of those, having to use also some things that are necessities at the same time as the ecosystem?
Yeah, the founder of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada, when he established the 7 purposes of ISKCON, one of them was simple living and high thinking. And he recommended farm communities. And basically 5 main principal items he wanted in some of his prominent farm communities. First was organic agriculture. Second is protection of cows and showing the power of the bulls. Third was to create a system for education because, when you are away from the city, you're in mode of goodness. It's very conducive for education. Fourth is he wanted people from the city to visit the farms and to be able to stay there and experience farm. So that's the guest house. And fifth, in few places, he wanted replica of Vrindavan or Braj. So we tried to accomplish these 5. And as you know that if you have to host groups from across the world to come and visit, then you need certain basic minimum facilities because even in the whole range of eco-friendly, there is, a community which can be without electricity, without running water, all the way to different shades. So we have tried to find a sweet mean, because initially, for at least 7 years, we did not have any air conditioning at all. And people were coming and checking out, and they just could not survive the heat and stuff like that. So we have tried to make sure that our eco-friendliness is in harmony with our mission, which is to transform hearts. And therefore, if the infrastructure does not enable people to even stay here, then they would not be in a position to experience any spirituality or transformation. So therefore, we have to find that balance by which we can actually accomplish that. But the idea of the eco-village was to, from the Indian context, bridge the city to the village. Because India has almost 650,000 villages. Most of them are quite neglected and poverty-stricken. And so people there are looking for paisa, and people in the city are looking for peace. So we tried to bring peace and paisa together and thought, how can we have a wellness retreat in a rural place which would transform the stress-induced people from the city, and at the same time then inspire them to come and handhold with us rural development over 400 villages which we are engaged in through education, healthcare, livelihood, skill, etc.
This middle ground, this balance between both of these worlds and placing priority on the spiritual values is amazing. And what I wanted to know was how you balance leadership and management with spirituality, because they seem like totally different worlds as well. And I know you're an expert in both of those as well. So that seems like, where do you place a priority there when it comes to making sure things are efficient and managed and led well, whilst at the same time propagating spiritual values? Do you feel that there's
Absolutely. On 22nd of January, the Ayodhya Ram temple installation is happening, and whole of India is very excited about this event. And so I've been giving some leadership lessons lately from the perspective of Ramayana. So Lord Ram represents integrity, because when he was given the choice to go to the forest, his father told him, I'm telling you to go to the forest, but I also give you the choice to refuse my request. So Ram said, no, I'm supposed to be an obedient son, and I have to show that as a leader. So he represents integrity, one who walks the talk. Lakshman represents service attitude, because the word Lakshman comes from Lakshmano Lakshmi Sampanna Bahirprana Ivappara. That means one who is Lakshmi Sampanna. Lakshmi represents wealth. So although Lakshman was in the forest, the wealth which he represents is the wealth of the opportunity to serve Ram. And therefore he considered every opportunity to serve. And even if in that service he had to go through excruciating pain, he considered that as wealth. So therefore from the word Lakshmi comes Lakshman. So he represents service attitude. When you get an opportunity to serve, we should consider that to be our greatest fortune. And third is Bharat, who represents tolerance, because Bharat comes from the word Bharavahi iti Bharata. Bhara means load. One of the greatest loads we experience is when people misunderstand us, accuse us for things we have not done. And so many relationship problems and heartbreaks happen because of this. Bharat had no role to play in the conspiracy created by Kaikeyi, but because of the context in which it happened, practically everybody in Ayodhya accused Bharat of being a co-conspirator. In fact, even Dashrath, while leaving his body, gave his last will to Vasishta, make sure that Bharat is not allowed to perform the funeral rites because he is a rascal. And saying this, Dashrath departed, and Bharat had to live his entire life with the heavy load and trauma that the person I loved the most misunderstood me, and I have no chance to clarify my position. So Bharat represents Bharavahi iti Bharata, the ability to tolerate the heavy load of misunderstanding and still continue on with his duty and following what Ram said, to take care of Ayodhya, taking the responsibility but without the facility. And the fourth is Shatrughna, who represents humility, because one of the greatest enemies of service is ego. So Shatrughna means one who had conquered his ego, as a result of which he could serve Bharat lifelong, loyally, even though the whole of Ayodhya was accusing Bharat of various things, but nothing could budge Shatrughna from his loyalty. So I would say that in today's context, relationship is all about teams. A leader is as good as the team he has. And if the teams do not have the ability to forge strong relationships, then they would collapse. And these four are the top pillars of forging a strong, sustainable relationship, which is Ram representing integrity, Lakshman representing service attitude, Bharat representing tolerance, and Shatrugna representing humility. And I think we have the perfect leadership recipe.
The clarity and it's almost like you don't waste a breath or a moment. The clarity with which you speak is actually profound, if I'm honest. Did you always see yourself like this? This has been you from a young age?
Well,
Personality of clarity, someone that really thinks with efficiency, and that's everything I attribute to you with. Even the systematic approach to how you explain scripture and ancient Vedic philosophy, it's incredible. But were you always like this?
Well, you learn till a certain stage at home and school, but the maturity of spiritual knowledge only percolates when you hear from the wisdom teachers and when you serve them and receive their grace. So, reading Srila Prabhupada's books and serving with His Holiness Radhanath Swami for almost 3 decades, I have learned a lot in their association and also with so many of my other colleagues who have been part of this journey. So, as they say that, a reader has to be a leader. Only a reader can be a leader. If you are a leader, you have to be a reader. So that reader is not just books, but also when you go through experiences and you reflect upon why and how things have happened in those experiences, it creates a depth in your ability to understand things. So I would call that then wisdom.
You've written a book called The Art of Habits. Are there any habits that you perhaps are really fond of, that you feel like 3 habits that you think people should all implement in their life?
Well, I say that prayer is the vaccine you need to use against the virus of change. Change is inevitable. And as soon as you begin the day from 9 o'clock till night 9 p.m., your whole day will be filled with changes. And every change creates fear and anxiety and stress. In order to immunize yourself against those changes and to maintain your stability and balance and calmness, I say that one who has controlled his 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. is able to control their 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
I love that.
And so most people today, their day begins at 9 p.m., So if you are able to create a lifestyle where people can sleep on time, wake up on time, and then give quality time for prayer. And that prayer may include a meditation. It may include, studying sacred literatures. It can include discussions on the sacred literatures. It can include family coming together for singing some spiritual songs. But the whole idea is you have to invest quality time in making sure that you develop your resilience by rooting yourself in things which do not change. So the more things change, the more you have to be rooted in things which do not change. And therefore, all of these sacred traditions in all religions, they actually connect us with principles which do not change. So the Gita speaks of 5 principles. So 3 are something which are constantly changing. Prakriti, nature, kala, time, and karma, which is action, is constantly changing. And the 2 which do not change is the jiva, the soul. But the soul, when they are trying to grapple with these 3 elements, trying to control nature under the time and doing action, so the soul is always in anxiety, thinking, I am the controller, I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. When there is repeated frustration, the soul goes through a period of introspection, and when with the right kind of association understands that maybe I'm not the controller, and then starts looking up. So the 5th topic of the Gita comes up, which is Ishwar, or the supreme controller. So therefore, when the soul establishes relationship with Prakriti, nature, Kala, time, and karma, action, and only obsessed with exploiting that nature, it's called bhoga, which is enjoyment. And bhoga results in chinta, or anxiety. When the soul looks up towards Ishwar, the relationship of the soul with Ishwar is called yoga. And the influence or the effect and impact of yoga is chintan, which is contemplation, as against conflicts and anxiety caused by bhoga. So therefore, I think, the kind of kirtans which you are promoting and sharing with the world, along with the philosophy which goes behind, I think it's very crucial to connect people to yoga and create doubt in their mind about their current narrative of being only obsessed with bhoga.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like you're convinced, and you're convincing me very much so also. And you spoke about doubt just now. I wanted to ask you, do you have any doubts right now in your spiritual path, in your practice of your spiritual journey? Is there anything that you're feeling currently that's an obstacle or a doubt in your mind? Just because you seem such a convinced individual and such a firm faith person that, maybe is there anything that's there that's,
Yes, I think the biggest doubt I have right now is how I am personally going to be able to allocate the appropriate time and energy and planning to balance between my very, very crucial spiritual practices and the depth of those practices, and maintain the quality of those practices on an ongoing basis vis-a-vis the multiple demands which are made from a spiritual leader who's part of an organizational leadership paradigm. So if you're a leader, then problems get thrown at you on a regular basis, and every problem appears to be very, very important and needs to be addressed. And when you're dealing with issues where there are heartbreaks of people and disappointments of people and need to be addressed, and at the same time expansion. So I would say that this balance between personal spiritual practice and institutional and organizational needs is the crossroads where I am at right now. And especially as ISKCON is going through a generational change, and as that change is being handed down, suddenly we are realizing what the previous generation was holding up for so long, and it was not perceptible till you start experiencing that load on your own head. So I think that's where I am at, and for that I do engage in long conversations with mentors and teachers who have gone through that journey and who are kind enough to share some of their wisdom.
Wow, how conscious. I was looking through your Instagram profile recently and I saw something really interesting, that the most viral reel that is on your Instagram grid is one on relationships.
Yeah.
And in one sense, I was a little bit shocked, because here is an ordained monk, someone who is celibate and who is living a life of commitment to spiritual values, and yet the most seen video is on relationships. I mean, tell me a little bit more about that.
To be honest, I have a team of people who are very young, and I keep reflecting with them, discussing with them on what are some of the current issues.
Right.
Because the whole idea of Bhagavad Gita as given by Krishna to Arjuna is Desha Kalartha Yuktani Hirta Tapa Upashamanicha Smaranti Haratam Chittam Govinda Abhitanime. When Krishna suddenly ended his pastime, Arjuna was in a crisis and Krishna was not there. So everyone thought, oh, Arjuna is lost because his friend is no longer there. How will he regain his balance? But Arjuna remembered the verses of the Gita. Smaranti Haratas Chittam. By remembering, all his doubts in his heart was removed. Govinda Abhihitani. Abhihitani refers to the beautiful words of Govinda, spoken before the battle. So the verse says that the words of the Gita and the wisdom of the Vedic literatures is filled with Desha Kala Artha Yuktani. They are filled with meaning which is relevant as per the time, place and circumstance. So therefore, when I first started studying the Gita 30 years ago, there was no smartphone and there was no this and that. So
even now, I mean, you won't believe it. Here's a mastermind of management. He does not use a smartphone. Doesn't have one.
Well, I have other ways of dealing with it. So the idea is that as the world has changed, we have to see what are the things which they need urgently and try to address that, so that people appreciate that the wisdom of the Gita is there for us in our current moment. So honestly, many of the things which I speak about in the Instagram, I may not have direct personal experience of many of that stuff. But then, because I'm in conversation regularly with the youth and, hear from them and take suggestions and guidelines from them, and there are many comments which come on the Instagram, comment section where many suggestions are given. So I think it's a community.
Right.
And in community, you kind of not just speak, but you also hear.
Right.
And then you kind of guide your narrative in a way that it is more appealing and it is practical for those who are hearing it.
Speaking of relationships, though, top advice?
Humility and gratitude. I think with these two, we can sustain a lot of relationships. And these are extremely rare in these days because of, social media. People are becoming more and more me-conscious, egocentric. And because of lack of memory, kritagya kono seveta. Kritagya is the word for gratitude in Sanskrit.
Kritagya.
Gya means to remember. Krita means what someone has done. So to remember what someone has done. So with fading memory of facts, figures, numbers, there is also fading memory of what someone has done for me in the past. So that's a challenge. And I think, in our communities, we should encourage people to be both humble and grateful. And I think that will do a lot to improve relationships.
Wow. So broad, but also so specific. We're seeing spirituality of the Vedic East transfer to the West a lot. This is an age in which people are particularly interested in Vedic science in Western countries, the US, Europe, etc. Why do you think that is, number one? And where do you see it going?
Yeah.
What do you think is the future of that?
See, I look at this body like a computer. Computer has its screen, its keyboard, but the most important part of the computer is its hard disk. If the hard disk crashes, then the computer crashes. So similarly, Krishna says in Gita, Bhumirapo anurvayu kham mano buddhirevacha ahankar etiyam bhinna prakritirashtada, that the 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and mind, intelligence, and ego, all these 8 together comprise what we call as the body, and the soul is within. So if I look at the body as a computer, then the external body is just like the screen, but the hard disk is the mind. And if the hard disk is corrupted by the virus of greed, anger, lust, etc., then it gets corrupted and it hangs. So you need an antivirus software. And the antivirus software is available in different formats, but one of the most authentic, ancient, and very effective antivirus software has been available in the Eastern traditions. And therefore, temples in Sanskrit are known as mandir, which means hospital for the mind. And so the medicine being distributed is the mantra, that which frees the mind of its anxieties. So therefore, I think that in a world where we are in a global community, there is a problem and there is a solution, geography is not so relevant and important. So if the East has a solution for mental health, why not take it? Because in the West, so many technological inventions took place which the East is using. So I think we are in a global marketplace.
Wow.
So therefore, exchange is the key.
Wow. A subtle plug for the chanting. Please come join us at a kirtan soon. I want to thank Gauranga Prabhu for his kind time. He's a man of very little time because he's always doing something. And I think I just want to express my gratitude for your time and your presence here and for the clarity of thought with which you shared. If you found this episode useful, you know what to do. Drop a comment below, just expressing your gratitude for the lessons that have been shared here today. And of course, feel the permission to listen to this conversation and again, because I feel like there are going to be quite a few lessons that you missed along the way. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode of For Soul's Sake. Thank you very much. Namaste.